Congress is slated to impeach President Trump this week. That's rare. Only two presidents have been impeached. A third, Nixon, left office during an accelerated probe. And right now, we're going to dig into some of the lessons from the few times America's hit this point and the limits of applying history to such a different world today. Consider how Nixon's investigation began with bipartisan support to find the facts. It did get quite partisan in the middle, but ultimately it ended with the facts changing everything.
The Senate tonight voted 77-0 to establish a select committee to investigate alleged political espionage in last year's election campaign.
The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history. The president has fired the man you just saw, the special Watergate prosecutor, Archibald Cox.
Washington has been inundated by another massive set of Watergate transcripts.
The transcripts and the testimony and the evidence, it mattered then. Today, there are some signs these things feel like they matter less. So in our special breakdown, let's take a look at why some of these old rules don't seem to always apply. One of the central features of Watergate is that, however slowly and even painfully, the facts ultimately moved people. Let me show you some remarkable evidence of that, even across party lines. Here's an apples-to-apples look at Richard Nixon's job approval numbers from Gallup, broken up between the two parties and the independents. And you can see, like most presidents, Nixon had higher support among his party, red, lower support in the blue opposing party. And that continues from the start of his tenure in 69 through re-election, through his second term when it was getting going in 73, with the ups and downs often matched within those political groupings you see on your screen. Now, those were divided times on politics, foreign policy, civil rights. But on key stories, many people reacted to the same common facts. As the bottom began to fall out of the Watergate story, with facts showing Nixon firing prosecutors in that Saturday Night Massacre, hiding evidence, losing Supreme Court battles, ultimately getting exposed, famously by the tapes proving his wrongdoing. Those developments were presented to Americans through the AP, the wire services, and the big three broadcast networks. Politico noting 85% of Americans saw part of the Nixon impeachment hearings on those four TV channels. Now, as all that happened, look how people responded to those facts. Public opinion shifting regardless of party. So yes, here you're going to see Democratic support for Nixon dropping further from a high point of 50% in 73 down to just 13%. Now that might seem like the easiest number to move, but take a look at this other similar shift among independents. They saw the facts and turned on Nixon, independent approval crashing by a whopping 50%. And now, as we've prepared this for you, I want to show you the most striking part. Nixon's own party, inclined to maybe give him the benefit of the doubt, dropping by a stunning 41% in approval. Not quite as low as the other groups, but a gigantic shift, revealing that many people heard those facts, and despite any partisan filtering, they reacted to the facts. And Watergate's often cited as an example of the system working in the courts, of the Congress, or journalism. These numbers remind us it was also an example of the public operating around the system, working, getting informed, providing a check on power, and a level of reassessment that has clearly not yet occurred at this stage in the Trump scandals. Here you have Trump's approval rating from the inauguration to the beginning of the Ukraine scandal, steady across those different groups. And while many say the difference in Watergate is, well, there were tapes. In this story, I have to remind you, there are some tapes that are as incriminating as Nixon's secret White House recordings. They just have better sound quality.
By the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens.
To be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. That guy still works for President Trump. So are those tapes changing minds? Well, support for impeachment has nudged up, but most people's views are pretty steady as Trump has uncorked more damning evidence against himself than most presidents. One factor may be how everyone gets information. The Gallup numbers we showed you are drawn from a wider Politico article by Harvard's Lawrence Lessig, arguing that many facts today are effectively they're quarantined into these smaller niches for information, in contrast to what some scholars call the broadcast democracy of earlier eras, with fewer narratives and more agreement on common facts. So as Congress marches towards impeachment and this Senate trial, is there a way to draw on these lessons and the factual breakthroughs of Perhaps a bygone era? Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.